Okay, I think it's recording. Um, so the purpose of this is to go over the syllabus. We can talk about it on Monday. If you have any questions, obviously you can email me, but try to save your questions until Monday. So yeah, let's dive on in. Let me share my screen. Ah, gigantic green button. There we are. So here's the syllabus. I sent it out at the beginning of the semester. I'll send it out again with the email that I send the link for this video. So let's dive in. I'll try to keep this as short as possible. So here's all my info. Here is, I need to change this. Let's see, Tuesday, Thursday is 11 to 2. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday is 12 to 1. That's right. So these are, I call them student hours, not office hours. Students think that student or office hours, like professors are sitting in their office doing really important work. We're not. We set aside this time specifically for students to come in. If students don't use this time, the time gets wasted. So please come by, and it doesn't have to be about anything in particular. Obviously, you want to talk about assignments. We're going to talk about your grade. Awesome. If you want to just come in and just talk about, you need some advice about, a tough assignment you're having in another class. If you want to talk about, you just want advice on college. If you're kind of like, I don't know what major I want to do, and I've gotten advice from my advisor, but I want to get like another perspective, come by. We can talk about anything that you want. And so obviously my door's always open during these hours. But also email me for an appointment. I'm happy to set aside time. I usually try to set aside a little bit of time on the weekends. So usually like Saturday morning, Sunday mornings, I'm writing, and I'm happy to use that time to talk with you. But that's by appointment, so just let me know. You have my email, the textbook. We're still figuring this out. This is our first semester with this online textbook. I usually don't use the textbook. A lot of the readings that I get, I try to find ways of getting you guys readings and stuff for free. I think there's an opt-out option, because right now you guys are getting automatically charged for the textbook. I think there's an opt-out option. I'm going to look into that if we don't need it. But if we end up having to use the textbook, if you guys are getting charged for it, by God, we're going to use it. So I'm looking into that. So right now everything is kind of to be determined. I'll know by the end of the week what's going on. The only other requirement, of course, is you need to be familiar with Google Drive. You already have a Drive set up. In fact, we're in Drive right now. This document is in Drive. And so we'll spend a day in class setting up your drives and stuff like that. I'll show you guys how to access them. And everything that you do in this class is turned in through Drive. You'll create a folder, you'll share that folder with me. And then that's where you'll turn all of your work in and stuff like that. And it doubles as your word processor. So you won't want to write your essays in Microsoft Word. You'll want to use the processor. That's what we're in right now, is the processor. So it doubles as your processor. So it's where you write the papers, and then in writing the papers, they are automatically in the folder that is shared with me. So you don't have to like click around and submit anything. Everything is already turned in. But we'll go over that in more detail when the time comes. So I'm not going to go over all this. This is just the course description and things like that. If you're interested, this is the boilerplate required language that is handed down sometimes from the university, sometimes from the college, sometimes from our department or the program, depending on what the given policy is. But this is pretty standard stuff. What is interesting in these learning outcomes? So I actually wrote these myself, and a couple of other of my colleagues over the summer. Every 5 years, we can update our learning outcomes, which is basically what are our core tenets as educators? What are we trying to teach our students? Another way you can look at it is, what are you paying for, right? When you buy something, let's say you buy insurance, you are expecting a certain product, right? If your water main busts, right, you expect the insurance is going to cover that. This is what you're buying, are these learning outcomes. And we have some flexibility in what those outcomes are, but we have to promise you something. This go around, I was fortunate enough to get on the committee and did a lot of the heavy lifting to produce these outcomes. I didn't write all of these exactly as they are, but about 90% of the language is mine. And these are the things that if you get out of this class and haven't picked up these skills, can't do these 7 things, then I guess you're entitled to a refund or something. And so if you're interested in the things that you're going to learn in this class, this is them kind of stripped down to their essence. But we're going to try to keep this short. If you're interested, read it. If not, move on. Assessment. So this isn't your assessment. This is my assessment. So at the end of the semester, we'll submit a portfolio. That portfolio is how we grade, how comp instructors grade themselves on whether or not they are successful. What we do is we look at your portfolios, we look at everything that you write in the class, and then we cross-reference it with the learning outcomes. Do we see these learning outcomes being coded into the stuff that is being produced in these portfolios? If yes, awesome, we're doing our job, our students are getting what they're paying for, and we can pat ourselves on the back and go home. If not, problems. Not all of your portfolios we looked at, we have all students submit a portfolio and then we pull a random sample. So this isn't your assessment, this is our assessment. So don't worry about this in the semester when you have to submit stuff. The portfolio has nothing to do with your grade. It's essentially for my grade. Here's what you're really interested in, the major assignments. So there are 3 major assignments and then sort of a 4th one tacked on. So like we talked about on Wednesday, you have the narrative, the analysis, and the argument. The 3 course sections are built around these assignments. So we're going to start with narrative starting next week. And then for about a third of the semester, we're going to be focused on narrative. And then you will write a narrative, hopefully get a couple of drafts out. And that's what you will have graded. That will be a big chunk of your grade. It makes up about 20% of your grade, any given assignment. There's also a kind of an attendance participation grade that students get that is factored in as well. But these make up a big chunk of your grade. But we'll get more into like my grading style and stuff like that later. I'm as transparent as possible when it comes to how I grade and things like that. So we'll dig into all of that. 20% is a big chunk, but I'll walk you through all of it. Statement of values. So these are things that I think is really important. You're welcome to read them. They're things that I value really deeply and that either inform the way I teach you or inform the way that I think about my job. Which those 2 things kind of go hand in hand. The ones I really, really want to focus on is student wellness. So I care about you guys' wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness, spiritual wellness, whatever. This is just a class. This is just a freshman level Comp 1 class, and I treat it as such. I think this stuff is super, super, super important, but I think that your wellness is more important, a little bit more. So yeah, if you feel unwell in whatever way, let me know. Let's talk about it. If we need to extend a due date or something like that, or you're like, I'm in a really bad place and I don't know what to do, you can talk to me. I'm happy to have those conversations with you. We do have really excellent counseling services. I've walked many a student over there to help them get free counseling from our accredited counselors. If you're interested in that, let me know. Let's walk over there. I'll walk you over there together and introduce you to the folks over there. So also, diversity and inclusivity, read that policy. Those things are really important. And when I'm thinking about how does that affect this class, like reading lists, like the readings that we do in the class, I try to make sure are very diverse and inclusive. So it does affect the way that we make choices in the course, and something that I care about. And when it comes to any of these policies, if you know of a really, really great reading by a writer that represents a community or identity that you think is underappreciated, or just you think it's just a great story, let me know. I'm always looking for more readings, more stories, and things to include in the class. And so anything that you can provide to help me make the course more diverse, more inclusive, or to just improve the course for whatever reason, let me know. We're on the traditional homelands, the Quapaw. Native Americans used to own this land. It was taken from them, and here we are. I think it's important to acknowledge. It doesn't do much to acknowledge it, but I don't know what else to do. I can't give this land back to them. So this is where we are. Students with disabilities, obviously, if you have a disability, you ensure they have disability services so that we can get you accommodated. Here's where it gets really important for understanding this course. I'm not going to read all of this, but I spent a lot of time developing this little paragraph here. And if you want an idea of how I really think about this course and what most deeply informs how I build the course, what my expectations are for you, what your expectations should be for me, it's all right here in this paragraph. I'm going to boil it down to, we're really focused on what we call process over product. What that means is I'm really not interested in how good a writer you are. I'm really not interested in how good or bad your essays are, especially your first drafts. What I am interested in is, what is your process? Are you someone who you have a really rigorous process? You start working on an essay a week before it's due, and you turn out a first draft and you tinker with it, you improve it a little bit, and then you turn it in. If so, wonderful, you have a process. Or do you start working on it the night before it's due? That's certainly a process, but it's not a healthy one. And so my hope is that as you're taking Comp 1, and then if you take Comp 2 with me especially, is developing some really healthy writing practices and just finding a process that works for you. I'm someone who works better under pressure. And so, but I also know that can cause procrastination, right? I know I'm going to get better writing if I'm under pressure. So the easiest thing to do is wait until the deadline is approaching, but that doesn't make for the best paper for me. And so finding ways of simulating pressure, putting things like a deadline on a first draft, knowing like kind of, if I push that due date up a bit and raise those expectations for myself, I can simulate that pressure that I need as a writer. And so that's what a lot of this class is. The thing is, I can't teach you process. I can't teach you what works for you. And all I could really teach you is what works for me. And that's not really helpful for you, most likely. And so my hope is that the course will give you the space to kind of develop process, or at least become aware of maybe flaws in your process, and give you the chance to polish those flaws. We can't get rid of our flaws altogether, right? I'm always going to be a little bit of a procrastinator. I'm always going to rely a little bit on that pressure to really get that diamond. But hopefully we can make it as healthy as possible. So yeah, read this. It's really important. It's just a paragraph. Policies. So I'm not going to go over all of these. I'm really going to only hit the high points of them. Number one policy, talk to me, right? If you're not talking to me, there's nothing I can do for you. If you're having problems, I don't care what those problems are. If you're having problems, you're having problems. Let's talk about it, right? It might be, dude, I procrastinated. I didn't give a shit until yesterday. The paper's due tomorrow. I'm freaking out. Awesome. Let's talk about it, right? And let's figure something out. Let's extend the due date a little bit. Let's talk about why you didn't care. Is it because you don't like your topic? Cool. Let's change your topic, right? There's always something underneath it, right? I decided years ago that I was always going to interpret the behavior of students in good faith, right? So if a student is acting like they don't care about something, I don't interpret that as, oh, they're a bad student, oh, they're apathetic and all these things. I'm going to interpret that as there's a problem underneath this. They're going through something in their personal life. They're not interested in the topic anymore, and they're not able to get the inspiration that they need. So let's talk about it. I don't care. Don't feel like because of how the situation might look to me, don't let that be a barrier, because I'm always going to have good faith in you guys. I'm always going to assume the best and that there's a valid reason for whatever. But if you're not talking to me, I can't do that, right? If you're not talking to me, it's hard to find that good faith. And if you talk to me, bam, that's enough care for me, right? If you're able to talk to me, I know you care enough, and I can work with that for sure. So just talk to me. Um, Goldfish policy. This kind of goes with the talk to me policy. So a colleague of mine, Dr. Isom, had this policy and I really liked it. Things are going to come up and you might not want to talk about it for whatever reason, right? You may have something terrible happen and you can't talk about it. Or it might be, I'm really embarrassed. I can't come to class because whatever, and I'm really embarrassed for the reason why. Um, just tell me your goldfish died. That's all you got to do. Just say my goldfish died and I'm not going to come to class, or my goldfish died and I need an extension. If you say my goldfish died, it's a no questions asked. Okay, moving on. Right. If you say my goldfish died and I need an extension, I'll say, okay, I'm sorry about your goldfish. When can you get it in? Or can you get it in by next Friday or something like that? All right. So in one sense, with the talk to me policy, I'm happy to talk about whatever. If crap's hitting the fan and you need someone to talk to, I'm there. If crap's hitting the fan and you really don't want to talk about it, but you need an extension, awesome. I'm there for that too. So both of these policies, if you want to talk about it or you don't, make use of them. But yeah, all you got to say is my goldfish died, and I will not ask you a single question. With the addendum of, if you tell me my goldfish died, I'm not going to make the class, but it's like the 7th time you've had a goldfish die, I'm going to expect a little bit of communication, right? I'm going to expect a little bit, just enough information for me to make a judgment, because at that point you're violating other policies, right? You're only allowed 6 absences in class, which we'll get to. So at that point, it's become a little bit of a problem, and I'm going to need a little bit more information so that I can make a decision of, okay, do I look past this and maybe bend the absence policy a little bit to make up for like this student having a loss in a family or something like that? Or the thought starts creeping in my mind, is this student abusing this policy? And I try to always have good faith in students, but I'm not a moron. I know that that's there. I know this is a policy that can be fairly easily abused. And so, yeah, know that that's there. I'm keeping count of things and stuff like that. But if someone's goldfish dies 2 or 3 times, it is what it is. Right, moving on. Technology, use it. Don't be playing music out loud in class. Don't be a distraction. Absences. So because this is a freshman level class, my hands are tied with absences. I do think attendance is super important. If it were up to me, all of you would come every single day. I'll tell you right now, I was a terrible student. I didn't go to every class. But I have to keep an absence policy, or I could lose my job, because this is a really high level. The reasoning is that when you get a degree, your employers or whatever are being told you have a set of skills, right? With that degree, it's kind of like a resume. If you lie on your resume, like, that's a problem. A degree is a lot like a resume. With a degree comes an inventory of skills gained from the classes on your transcript. Let's say that you are a nurse or whatever, and you took a class on CPR. To any of the CPR classes, but pass the CPR class and they have a degree that says that they have a CPR certification, that person doesn't know how to do CPR, but the university has vouched for their ability to do CPR, right? Because that class on the transcript, they pass the class, you get the logic. And so the university or the federal government or the state government, I don't know, has decided that 2 weeks of class, if you miss 2 weeks or more of a class, then you cannot be credited. It cannot be said that you've taken the class and have those skills. And so you have 6 absences. After 6, we have a problem. If you're communicating with me, we can talk about excusing absences and stuff like that. But after a certain point, and these are 6 excused absences. These aren't like 6 unexcused absences like it was in grade school and stuff like that. You have 6 absences full stop. 7 absences I can look past. 8, it's getting murky and it becomes situational, right? And it's at my discretion. I have 100% discretionary power here to determine case by case. And so if you're going to miss class, stay in my good graces. That's all I got to say. Communicate with me. Let me know what's going on. Use the goldfish policy, but understand that each time you use it after 2 or 3 times, right, you're getting closer and closer. 6 goldfish deaths is still 6 absences or whatever. So communicate with me, but also know I'm not here to fail anybody. I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to bend policies. I've gotten really good at it, but I can't break policies. And so, yeah, work with me. Give me the ability to make your case. Give me a paper trail of emails of you communicating what's going on. If you've got that, we're golden. I can advocate for you. If not, there's little I can do after 6 absences. Right, moving on. Due dates. All due dates are final. There are very few due dates in here. If I set a due date, it is final unless you request an extension, right? If you ask for an extension and we have a conversation about it, the finality of the due date can be negotiated. You'll find that I'm extremely happy to negotiate, again, if you're communicating with me. Peer review. So you'll be doing a lot of drafting in the class. First drafts will be peer reviewed. And so really it's only the narrative that kind of runs into this issue, but you need to be prepared to share your work with your peers and not just me. Some students, when they write the narrative, they get into some pretty personal stuff. And so obviously no one is judging anybody in this class. No one's judging their writing or the content of it. But just some students are really nervous about this, but it is a fact of the class. That peer review is something that we do. We share our work with each other. You'll be able to choose who you peer review with. If the information in your essay is extremely sensitive and personal, I'm happy to set you up with someone in another class. We can work something out. But yeah, be prepared for peer review. Google Docs, we already talked about that. That's Docs is in Drive. Revision policy. We're going to revise a lot. And if you get a grade on a paper that you're not super happy with, you can always revise it and I'll regrade it. And usually I'll slap a couple extra points on there just for having done an extra revision. But this is kind of my idea of revision. Revision is what distinguishes a second draft from a first draft. So you'll do a first draft, you'll peer review. That peer review will, your peer will give you comments. I like this section. This section isn't quite working. I suggest tinkering with this and this. I used to do a revision minimum where you had to do, and you can see revisions in Drive. I can show you. Here you can go to version history and you can see all of the different revisions that have been made. Let me find. Yeah, so you can see where I'm changing stuff. So I can count your revisions in Drive. I used to set a revision minimum. It was like 35 revisions, right? Changing 35 words, tinkering with stuff. Would accumulate to about 35. I've since gotten rid of the revision minimum, and instead I leave it to you to decide at what point a essay is considered revised. And the way that we're going to define it is a new revision, a new draft is the point at which you believe that your essay is ready for another round of criticism. That might be changing a few words, tightening up your language here and there, and then bam, I'm ready. That was what was really holding me back. Now I'm ready. It might be a full rewrite. I doubt it, but maybe. The point at which you personally feel, I think this thing is the biggest issues from the last draft have been fixed. I'm really happy with where this is at, and I feel like it's ready for another round of strong criticism. Um, that's where we're going to count, right? So unless I look at a paper and I do kind of skim over, because I'm really interested in the choices that you're making and the revisions that you're making, but I'm not going through there and counting them, right? That's not the nature of how I grade and how I'm engaging with your work. But I'm really interested in the choices you're making with your text. And so when I'm going through and I'm looking at changes you're making, if I see like 2 changes, that throws up red flags for me, right? Where I'm thinking like, is this student really engaging with what I'm trying to teach them? Are they really showing that they are committed to improving this paper? And if I see just a few changes, I might kick it back, unless those changes are 2 extremely high quality changes that change the entire fabric of the paper. Um, I might kick it back and say like, hey, could you tinker with this a little bit more before we get to the next round of criticism? Uh, that's very rare. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've had to do that with students. I found that students usually buy in to their assignments, usually because they're choosing their own topic and they just care because of that. So I don't expect this will be an issue, but it is a system, and it's expected that everyone, student and myself, is engaging with this system in good faith and isn't abusing it and stuff like that. So, grading. Here's how your grade gets determined. Is through drafting. And then I have this. I've yet to have a student take advantage of this, but students who submit a polished draft. So you get a grade on your second draft. First draft is peer reviewed, second draft, I grade. If you want a better grade, let's say you get 80 something on your paper on your second draft and you wanted an A, you can submit a third polished draft. It gets regraded and I add 10 bonus points on top of that. So let's say you got like a 60, like you completely misinterpreted the instructions, wrote the absolute wrong thing, and just failed the assignment in every possible way. You could easily rework that paper and get an A, even if it's a B level paper, just by engaging in the process. If you go from like an F or a D to a B, I add 10 bonus points on it because you're engaging with the course and showing that you care and want to improve. If you do a polished draft for all three of the major assignments, the narrative, the analysis, the argument, I will add 10 bonus points to your final grade. So if you pull a B in the class, I'll add 10 bonus points and you'll get an A. I yet had a student do this because usually the students who would want to do that are usually just good students and don't need it, I guess. Don't need the bonus points because they're usually scoring high B's and into the A's on all their assignments. So, but it's there, it's there. So even if you feel like I am an awful writer and you're not doing the best on all of your assignments, there's still options for you to be able to do really well points wise in the class. Because what I really care about in the end is just that you're improving, that you're buying into the process I'm trying to teach. If you're doing that, you'll do well. So if you don't identify as a strong writer, understand that baked into the course are ways for you to thrive at the grade level, no matter how you perform. Feedback. So this is super important. I'm actually not going to go over this because we're going to spend a lot of time looking at this at a later point. But I care a lot more about the feedback than your grade. You learn a lot more from me digging into your paper and saying what is working well, what is working not as well. I try to, that's our one-on-one time, right? Me looking at your paper really closely and giving you commentary on it. Different students are looking for different commentary, though. Let's say you could give less of a shit what I have to say. Wonderful. You can indicate as much and basically ask for less feedback. Just say like, man, I want broad stroke comments. Tell me in the broadest sense what you like and don't like, and then just give me my grade. There's an option for that. If you want down to the finest detail, you want me to go sentence by sentence, and give commentary. There's an option for that, and then there's a middle option for, I want deeper than broad strokes, but not fine tooth comb. Um, there's an option for that as well. And you will communicate to me through a cover letter what kind of feedback you want. We'll look at this as we get closer to the narrative assignment being the deadline. We'll look at that. Makeup policy, can read that. In the end, it's your responsibility to let me know if you've resubmitted something. This is especially true at the end of the semester. A lot of students will wait until the very, very end to turn in polished drafts. You gotta let me know. I'm not going to go through and check your drive. I've got over 100 students. There's no possible way. If you've resubmitted something, first off, let me know you want to resubmit. If you get a B on a paper and you're like, I want to resubmit for an A, let me know that. I'll give you the go ahead. And then when it's turned in, send me an email like, hey, I finished it. It's there. It's ready for you. Here's the title of it in the doc. Especially, like I said, at the end of the semester. If you're turning a bunch of crap in at the very end of the semester, so is 40 other people. So let me know, because what I do is I go in my email and I flag all those so that when I'm done grading, go back to my email inbox, search for all my flagged emails, and like double and triple check that I've got everybody. So communicate everything to me that you can. Writing center, dude, our writing center is amazing. That's where I was trained. I did my graduate work here at A State, and that's where I was trained. I worked at the writing center for a year before I started teaching classes as a graduate student. They're really, really amazing over there. They're younger. They're in their mid-20s, and they're really good at what they do. You're working with all graduate students over there, and they're really, really great. And usually, if you go to the writing center, I can throw a couple bonus points your way. And also, if you miss peer review, let's say you're sick at that time or something and can't make peer review. Peer review isn't something you can make up, but you can go to the writing center and I'll accept that as your peer review. So the writing center is on the third floor of the library, and yeah, they're really, really great. Inclement weather, don't drive on ice to get here. Don't drive through a flood. I try to be really I usually cancel class for storms and stuff like that. Like, I'm not trying to make people walk through sideways rain or walk through snow and stuff like that, especially in this age of Zoom and stuff like that. So if a storm is coming, email me. I try to keep a really good weather eye, but if hey, tomorrow we're supposed to have really bad weather, let me know so I can keep an eye on it. I would rather cancel class and risk nothing than not cancel class. No one comes to class anyway, and the few who do get soaked and have a terrible day. So, yeah. And if it rains, if you're living in Cabot, you're living off somewhere, and Jonesboro doesn't get hit by it, but you guys do, and you live on a gravel road and it's flooded, let me know. That's obviously not going to count against you as an absence, right? Just let me know, and that is obviously stay home, and it's not going to count against you. Plagiarism. So obviously I'm aware Chat GPT is a thing. I'm still developing my thoughts on it. If you use a paper to wholesale write, or you use Chat GPT to wholesale write a paper for you, that's obviously plagiarism, and you're going to fail the class. I'm still trying to figure out. I feel like Chat GPT is to the composition class what the graphing calculator is to the math class, right? Like, I remember being told as a kid, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket when you get older, so you better learn these formulas. Now we have graphing calculators in our phones that obviously fit in our pocket. And so, 'cause, 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 ' Still developing my thoughts, but I'm not at a point yet where I'm comfortable having students use Chat GPT. I think they're really great for topic generation. I think they're really great for you can use AIs to kind of develop like, hey, I'm interested in this economic policy and I want to research it. There's this new economic policy that's gaining traction. I think it's really cool. I don't know much about it. How can I develop a topic that is sufficiently advanced for a college paper, but isn't going to be over my head, that it's interesting and not bland and stuff like that. So I think ChatGPT has its place in developing topics and generating ideas. But obviously, we don't want students copy pasting ChatGPT written papers and getting grades for it. So, yeah, don't do that. It, I've yet to be forced to catch a student for it, and so I'm pretty lax right now with it. If I catch one student with it, I have to completely rethink my approach. I'm going to have to be a lot harder in searching for it. It makes my life a lot tougher. It's going to make my students' lives a lot tougher, essentially, in my class. Um, because then I have to start putting them through checkers, and those checkers are not efficient. But what option would a student give me at that point? So, for the love of God, don't do it. If you do, you're going to ruin it for everybody. Um, if you really want to use Chat GPT, let me know, right? And let's talk about ethical uses of it because I'm still looking to learn. I'm still looking to figure out how to implement this technology in my class. Um, So if you're someone who's been using ChatGPT to do papers and stuff like that, let me know. I'm really interested what your experience is with it, what you've been getting out of it, and how we can make use of it um, in a way that makes sense in this setting. Um, Beyond ChatGPT, I always have students who just like straight copy paste stuff from the internet and try to pass it off as their essay, especially the rhetorical analysis. A lot of students wholesale copy paste. Um, Depending on the context, I might give you a strike. I might not. It's an automatic fail of the essay. Maybe I let you rewrite it depending on how bad it is. Cite your sources and do not copy paste a whole bunch of just straight copy paste from an article in your paper and then just put it in your work side where you're like, well, I cited it. Like, no, you can't copy. Don't copy paste anything unless it's a direct quote or it's plagiarism. So we don't mess with plagiarism in this class. We can't. Plagiarism is the cardinal sin of academia. More on that later. Academic misconduct, don't plagiarize. FERPA, I can't share your grades or information about the course with anybody, including your parents. So please don't have your parents email me about your grades, or I'll have to be really catty with them. Bunch of Title IX stuff. Yeah, that's everything. All right, so this is ran a little bit longer than I would like. That's everything. So hopefully you got to this point. If so, wonderful. If you have any questions, hopefully you've written them down and we can talk about them on Monday. So that's everything. All right. Yeah, bye.